Hey guys, good morning. So this morning we're gonna talk about making things negative in French. So let's jump into the lesson, and I hope this helps, guys. I hope this helps. Sorry I missed the last couple days with uploading. I've just been busy like looking for jobs. So without further ado, let's jump in. So again, we're talking about making things negative this morning. Okay. So bonjour. In this lesson, we're going to get a little negative. You learn how to turn positive statements into negative ones so that you can talk about things that you don't like, don't have, don't do, etc. So once you're finished, you'll be able to take every principle you've learned so far and say it in negative. So let's go. All about hugs. In English, the most basic way to make statements negative is to add not to the sentence somehow. For example, the negative version of the positive statement, I am on time, is I am not on time. While the negative version of she swims each morning is she doesn't swim each morning. In French, you get the same effect by adding two words, ne and pas. These words are placed on either side of the verb, i.e., the action word, giving it a little negation hug. So, for example, we have je suis à l'heure. Je suis à l'heure meaning I am on time in English.
Je suis à l'heure.
Je suis à l'heure. Je suis à l'heure. Then we have, for the negation, we have je ne suis pas à l'heure.
Je ne suis pas à l'heure.
Je ne suis pas à l'heure. Je ne suis pas à l'heure.
Je ne suis pas à l'heure.
Okay, je ne suis pas à l'heure, which means I am not on time. So we have je suis à l'heure, I am on time. Then you have je ne suis pas à l'heure, which is I am not on time. The second one is elle nage chaque matin. Elle nage chaque matin.
Elle nage chaque matin.
Elle nage chaque matin. And for the negation, we have elle ne nage pas chaque matin.
Elle ne nage pas chaque matin.
Elle ne nage pas chaque matin. So first we have elle nage chaque matin, which means she swims each morning. Then we have elle ne nage pas chaque matin, which means she doesn't swim each morning. As you can see, the negating words ne and pas have gone on either side of suis, am, and nage, swim in these sentences. So that you can get used to this concept, we've included a few more examples below. As you go through them, notice the ne and pas hug in each sentence. Ils ne vont pas au restaurant.
Ils ne vont pas au restaurant.
Which means they are not going to the restaurant in English. Ils ne vont pas au restaurant. Then we have ils ne parlent pas espagnol.
Ils ne parlent pas espagnol.
Il ne parle pas espagnol. And il ne parle pas espagnol means he does not speak Spanish. Then we have elle ne travaille pas pour cette entreprise.
Elle ne travaille pas pour cette entreprise.
Which means they don't work for this company. Elle ne travaille pas pour cette entreprise. Then we have on ne part pas avant 15 heures. On ne part pas avant 15 heures.
On ne part pas avant 15 heures.
Which means we aren't leaving until 3 p.m. On ne part pas avant 15 heures. Let me do that one more time. On ne part pas avant 15 heures. Et voilà. Then we have tu n'aimes pas le concombre. Tu n'aimes pas les concombres.
Tu n'aimes pas les concombres.
Tu n'aimes pas les concombres. Tu n'aimes pas les concombres. Which means you don't like cucumbers. So from the top, we have ils ne vont pas au restaurant, which means they are not going to the restaurant in English. Then we have il ne parle pas espagnol, which means he doesn't speak Spanish. Then we have elle ne travaille pas pour cette entreprise, which means they don't work for this company. Then we have on ne part pas avant 15 heures, which means we are not leaving until 3 p.m. Then we have tu n'aimes pas le concombre, which means we don't like, well, you don't like cucumbers. You may have noticed in the final example above that ne undergoes elision, okay? if it's followed by a verb that starts with a vowel, becoming N apostrophe, because M starts with A, okay? So it's a vowel. Something else worth noting is that the word pa, which ends in a silent S, can liaise with a vowel initial word that follows it, or not. It's up to you. But most French speakers tend to have the liaison out more often than they include it in casual conversation. When there's more than one verb. So we've covered how ne and pas hug the verb in order to make a sentence negative. But what happens when you're using more than one verb to express something? Like when you're using aller to go plus another verb to talk about the future. So for example, je vais regarder ce film. I am going to watch that movie is je vais regarder ce film.
Je vais regarder ce film.
Je vais regarder ce film. Again, je vais regarder ce film means I am going to watch that movie. So anytime that two verbs work together like this in French, no matter what verbs they are, only one of them will ever be conjugated. The other one will remain in its infinitive, unchanged form. And in these instances, only the conjugated verb gets hugged by the ne and pas, creating a negation. So, in the sentence above, we have je vais regarder ce film. So the first verb is vais, which je vais, which is the first verb, is vais, which is from aller, okay? The second verb is regarder. So based on this rule, we're saying that the first verb is the one that gets the negation. So if I want to say I am not going to watch the movie, I would say je ne vais pas regarder ce film.
Je ne vais pas regarder ce film.
Je ne vais pas regarder ce film. As you can see, the ne and pas are only hugging vais, and vais is go. The infinitive verb regarder, to look or to watch, is left on its own. So it's left in the unchanged version of the verb. Below are a few more sentences like this for practice, but keep an eye out. They don't all use aller, to go. So the next example, we have il ne va pas sortir de la maison aujourd'hui. So the two verbs here is va for go and sortir, which means to leave. So il ne va pas sortir de la maison aujourd'hui.
Il ne va pas sortir de la maison aujourd'hui.
And il ne va pas sortir de la maison aujourd'hui means he's not going to leave the house today. Il ne va pas sortir de la maison aujourd'hui. The next example, ils n'aiment pas voyager, which means they don't like travel. So, ils n'aiment pas voyager. Right. So the two verbs here is to like, and then we have voyager, which is to travel. Aimer, means aimer in French. In English translates to like. Okay. So the first verb in this sentence is aimer. And then we have voyager. So the negation is ils n'aiment pas voyager, which means they don't like to travel. The third example, elle ne déteste pas courir. Okay. Elle ne déteste pas courir. So the first verb is déteste, which means to hate in English. Then we have courir, which means to run in English. Okay.
Elle ne déteste pas courir.
Elle ne déteste pas courir. Elle ne déteste pas courir. Let's do that one more time. Elle ne déteste pas courir. Right. So, elle ne déteste pas courir means she doesn't hate running. Notice how in English you have the option of saying that you like or hate to do something, or that you like or hate doing something. In French though, there's only one option because the second verb always has to be in the infinitive. Okay? Making il y a negative. You'll remember that the phrase il y a, which literally means it, there has, is used to mean there is or there are. If you want to make this phrase negative, you'll have to change it to il n'y a pas, there isn't or there aren't. This might look a bit strange at first, but you might be wondering why the word why, there, is included in the ne pas hug. The reason behind it actually has to do with some advanced pronouns that we haven't yet covered. So we won't get into it right now. For now, just memorize the phrase il n'y a pas as meaning there isn't or there aren't. So il n'y a pas means there is not or there are not. So example sentences to try. For example, we have il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo. So il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo means there isn't any cheese in the fridge.
Il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo.
Il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo. Then we have il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur. Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur.
Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur.
Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur. And il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur means there isn't a spider on the wall or there is no spider on the wall. Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur. Then we have il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe. Il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe. Il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe.
Il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe.
Okay. And il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe means there aren't any men in our group. Il n'y a pas d'homme dans notre groupe. Voilà. Negation and articles. When you're creating a negative statement, the word pas is followed by an article that is a word like a or the. The article might need to change depending on what kind it is. Remember that French has three kinds of articles. We have definite articles, which is le, la, les. Le, la, L apostrophe, les. We have indefinite articles, which is un, in, des. Then we have partitive articles, which is du, de la, del, des. If a definite article follows pas in a negative sentence, then you don't need to worry. Everything stays the same. You've actually already seen an example of this above. And the example is, tu n'aimes pas les concombres. So the definite article here is les. And tu n'aimes pas les concombres means you don't like cucumbers.
Tu n'aimes pas les concombres.
Tu n'aimes pas les concombres. If an indefinite article or partitive article follows pas, then it usually changes to de or the apostrophe if it comes before a vowel sound. It doesn't matter if the noun that comes after it is masculine or feminine, singular or plural, the noun will stay the same, and the article will just become de as in de or the apostrophe. You can think of this de as meaning any. So I'll read that one more time. So if an indefinite article, okay, and the indefinite articles are un, in, des, follows pas, then it usually changes to de, de, or the apostrophe if it comes before a vowel sound. So if the word after it starts with a vowel, then it changes to de or the apostrophe. It doesn't matter if the noun that comes after is masculine or feminine, singular or plural, the noun will stay the same and the article will become de or the apostrophe. You can think of this de as meaning any. You've already seen this change in the examples with il n'y a pas, there isn't, or there are, in the previous section. Here are those sentences again, this time paired with their positive counterparts so that you can compare the two. So, the next example, we have il y a du fromage dans le frigo, which means there is some cheese in the fridge. Il y a du fromage dans le frigo.
Il y a du fromage dans le frigo.
Then we have il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo. which means there isn't any cheese in the fridge. Il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo.
Il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo.
Okay. Then we have il y a une araignée sur le mur.
Il y a une araignée sur le mur.
Il y a une araignée sur le mur. And that means there is a spider on the wall. And to reinforce, these sentences are reinforcing the rule that we just learned, okay? And the rule is once a partitive article follows pas, if the next word after it starts with a vowel sound, you have to use DE or D apostrophe. So for example, il y a une araignée sur le mur means there is a spider on the wall. And the partitive article that they use is une. The indefinite article, not partitive, the indefinite article that they use is une, which is une. So because of that, if you want to make the sentence negative, you will have to change that une to D apostrophe. So the negative version of that sentence is il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur, which means there isn't a spider on the wall or there is no spider on the wall.
Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur.
Il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur. Okay, and I just mentioned what that meant. Then we have il y a des hommes dans notre groupe, which means there are some men in the group. So il y a des hommes dans notre groupe.
Il y a des hommes dans notre
Okay.
groupe.
No, il y a des hommes dans notre groupe. Il y a des hommes dans notre groupe, which means there are some men in the group. For the negation of that sentence, we will have il n'y a pas d'hommes, which is the D apostrophe, and dans notre groupe, which means there aren't any men in our group.
Il n'y a pas d'hommes dans notre groupe.
Il n'y a pas d'hommes dans notre groupe. Good. We have included the words some and any in English translation above where possible to help you see exactly what's happening. But you could drop them if you wanted to in French. However, the articles must always be present. So I'll just run through the examples again to reinforce the rule which we went through before. So we have il y a du fromage dans le frigo, which means there is some cheese in the fridge. But if we want to do the negation of that sentence, based on the rule that was just described, it will change from du fromage to il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo. The next example, and il n'y a pas de fromage dans le frigo, it translates to there isn't any cheese in the fridge. Okay? Then we have il y a une araignée sur le mur. And il y a une araignée sur le mur means there is a spider on the wall. But if you want to make that negative, we would say il n'y a pas d'araignée sur le mur, which means there isn't a spider on the wall. Or there is no spider on the wall. And let's get that pronunciation of spider correct. It's il n'y a pas d'araignée, not araignée, it's araignée sur le mur. The next example, we have il y a deux hommes dans notre groupe. Il y a des hommes dans notre groupe, which means there are some men in our group. If you want to make that negative, we will say il n'y a pas d'hommes, which is the D apostrophe, dans notre groupe. There aren't any men in our group. Okay. This is one of those things that may seem needlessly tricky when you first learn it, but it will become second nature soon enough. And if you're having a lot of trouble at the start, it can always help to come up with the positive version of the sentence first and then convert it into the negative version from there. Now, there are some more example sentences for you to practice with below. These include negations before all three article types, so watch out. So, the first example, nous ne cherchons pas de chaussures. Nous ne cherchons pas de chaussures. Nous ne cherchons pas des chaussures.
Nous ne cherchons pas de chaussures.
Okay. And nous ne cherchons pas des chaussures means we aren't looking for shoes. Nous ne cherchons pas des chaussures. Next sentence, we have mais vous ne gagnez pas d'argent. Mais vous ne gagnez pas d'argent.
Mais vous ne gagnez pas d'argent.
Mais vous ne gagnez pas d'argent, which means but you aren't earning any money. Mais vous ne gagnez pas d'argent means you aren't earning any money. Then we have elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas de temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas de temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas de temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. No, I'm not saying that correctly. Elles n'ont pas de temps d'étudier.
Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier.
Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. And elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier means they don't have time to study. I'll repeat that one more time. Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier. Elles n'ont pas le temps d'étudier means they don't have time to study. Then we have Jean-Claude n'est pas de frère. Jean-Claude n'est pas de frère.
Jean-Claude n'a pas de frère.
Jean-Claude n'a pas de frère, which means Jean-Claude doesn't have a brother. Jean-Claude n'a pas de frère. Right. So Jean-Claude n'a pas de frère. Again, it means Jean-Claude doesn't have a brother. Negation, articles, and it. There was one important instance where you don't have to change indefinite or partitive articles to de, which is de, which means any in English, when they come after pas. And that's when you're using the verb être to be. This could be very confusing, guys. I know, because there's a lot of rules to remember. And if you don't start practicing speaking or take time to listen to audio in French, it's going to be really difficult to remember. So my first suggestion is that you practice speaking as much as you can, even if you make mistakes. Try to watch series in French, try to listen to audio in French, so that you pick up the flow of the language and you're able to implement the rules that we're going through in these lessons, okay? So, for example, c'est un livre, which is, this is a book.
C'est un livre.
Okay. C'est un livre. Then the negation for this is ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magasin. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magasin.
Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine.
Oh, c'est un magazine, because magasin is store. Okay. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine. And ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine means there isn't a book, this is a magazine. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magasin. Magazine. No. I need to do that over. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine.
Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine.
C'est un magazine. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un... Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine. I'll do that one more time. Ce n'est pas un livre, c'est un magazine. Et voilà. As you can see, the indefinite article un doesn't change to de in a negative version of this sentence. It would, after all, be a little strange to say this isn't any book. Not, never, and more. So far, we've only looked at negating sentences using ne and pas, the most basic and most important negative construction in French. Now, though, it's time to learn about a few others that you can use. So, we have the ne and pas, which is the common negation. And another one is ne jamais, which is never. And we have ne plus, which means no longer or not anymore. So from the top, we have ne and pas, which means not. We have ne jamais, which means never. We have ne plus, which means no longer or not anymore.
Ne pas.
Ne pas.
Ne jamais.
Ne jamais.
Ne plus.
Ne plus. The good news is that once you can use one of these negative phrases, you can use them all. So for example, once you learn how to say ne pas, you can definitely use ne jamais or ne plus, okay? So to show you exactly how each of these constructions work, let's apply them one at a time to this positive sentence. So the first sentence is Je mange des carottes.
Je mange des carottes.
Je mange des carottes. And je mange des carottes means I eat carrots. But the negation of this sentence is je ne mange pas des carottes, which means I don't eat carrots.
Je ne mange pas de carottes.
Je ne mange pas de carottes, which means I don't eat carrots. Then we have je ne mange jamais des carottes.
Je ne mange jamais de carottes.
Je ne mange jamais de carottes, which means I never eat carrots. And we have je ne mange plus de carottes.
Je ne mange plus de carottes.
Je ne mange plus de carottes. And je ne mange plus de carottes means I no longer eat carrots or I don't eat carrots anymore. You can see that each of these negative expressions works the same way. They all hug the conjunction verb. They all hug the conjugated verb in the sentence, and they are all followed by de, any, rather than the original articles de, which means some. So that's it. You just replace pas with any of these other negative words and you can say all kinds of things. So basically they're saying that you just drop pas and you say jamais and you say plus. So ne plus, ne jamais. Below are some more example sentences that we can go through to compare the ne pas, ne jamais and ne plus. So, elle ne dessine pas, elle ne dessine plus, elle ne dessine plus.
Elle ne dessine plus.
Elle ne dessine plus. And elle ne dessine plus means they don't draw anymore. Elle ne dessine plus. Then we have on ne va jamais skier. On ne va jamais skier, which means we are never going to ski.
On ne va jamais skier.
On ne va jamais skier. Then we have vous ne travaillez pas. Vous ne travaillez pas.
Vous ne travaillez pas.
Vous ne travaillez. Come on, Philippe. Vous ne travaillez pas. Vous ne travaillez pas means you don't work. Now that you have noticed that jamais, never, and plus no longer end in silent S's, because these both words end with a silent S, just like pas, we should mention that like pas, you can liaise with a vowel initial word that comes after it. Or not, you don't have to. Once again, it's your choice. So you can choose to use la liaison with jamais, jamais, pas, or plus. It's not mandatory, it's a flexible rule. So if you're using, for example, let me think of an example. I can't think of an example right now. But if the word that follows the negation starts with a vowel, then you can do la liaison. It's not mandatory, it's optional. If this is all they're saying, that's it. Let me not make this complicated. That's it. Okay. So, nothing and no one, rien and personne. There are two other major French negative words that we haven't mentioned yet, since they work a little differently from the ones that we have already talked about. So we have rien, which means nothing, and we have personne, which means no one. These words are actually pronouns, and they are different for two reasons. Both rien, nothing, and personne, no one, can be used before the verb as the subject. So ne personne doesn't follow the usual hug rules. So ne personne doesn't follow the rules of pas or jamais or plus. They don't hug the verb, okay? So it comes either before or after. So all of the negative words that we have learned, for example, so far, pas, jamais, come after the verb as part of the hugging construction with ne. Rien, nothing, and personne, no one, can do the same thing. Or they can come in front of the verb before ne. So we're going to talk about the the French verbs, the French pronouns, the negative expressions, and we're going to say their meaning in English, okay? So we have ne rien,
Ne rien.
and ne rien means nothing or not anything. Then we have ne personne, which means no one or not anyone.
Ne personne.
Ne personne. Then we have rien ne, which means nothing.
Rien ne.
Then we have personne ne, which means no one.
Personne ne.
Now take a look at some example sentences that use each of these constructions. We have elles n'entendent rien.
Elles n'entendent rien.
Elles n'entendent rien, which means they don't hear anything. Elles n'entendent rien. Elles n'entendent rien. They don't hear anything. Then we have le film n'intéresse pas. Le film n'intéresse, non, le film n'intéresse personne. Le film n'intéresse personne.
Le film n'intéresse personne.
Le film n'intéresse personne, which means the movie doesn't interest anyone. Le film n'intéresse personne. Then we have rien ne change. Rien ne change, which means nothing changes.
Rien ne change.
Rien ne change. Then we have personne ne va manquer la fête. And personne ne va manquer la fête means no one is going to miss the party.
Personne ne va manquer la fête.
Personne ne va manquer la fête. So, you can see the differences between the construction styles, right? When rien, nothing, and personne, no one, come after the verb, they're acting as the object of the sentence. That is, they are receiving the action. When they come in front of the verb, they are acting as the subject of the sentence. That is, they are performing the action. So in other words, if you want to say that nothing or no one is doing something, then you can just put rien ne or personne ne in front of the action. Just like English. And if something is being done to nothing or no one, instead, you use the ne rien or the ne personne hug. So the no one hug. Speaking of ne personne, there's a key difference between the hug construction and the others that we've covered so far. When there is more than one verb working together in a sentence, the word personne doesn't come right after the conjugated verb as usual. Instead, it would come after the second verb. Okay. So the example is nous n'allons trouver personne comme ça. Nous n'allons trouver personne comme ça, which means we are not going to find anyone like this.
Nous n'allons trouver personne comme ça.
Nous n'allons trouver personne comme ça. I'll do that one more time. Nous n'allons trouver personne comme ça. So the first verb is allons, which means to go. And then the second verb is trouver. So what they're saying is that for the first verb, you don't put personne behind the conjugated verb. You put it behind the second verb. So in this instance, the second verb is trouver. And trouver is not conjugated. It's in its infinitive state. Compare this to the same sentence with ne rien, nothing, which follows the usual rule of only hugging the conjugated verb. So for example, if you want to say we're not going to find anything like this, you would say nous n'allons rien, which comes after the conjugated verb, trouver comme ça. And nous n'allons rien trouver comme ça means we're not going to find anything like this.
Nous n'allons rien trouver comme ça.
Nous n'allons rien trouver comme ça. So that you can get used to this and to using rien, nothing, and personne, no one in general, we put together some more practice sentences below, which I will go through. Personne n'aime le chou de Bruxelles. Personne n'aime chou le Bruxelles. Bruxelles, I think.
Personne n'aime les choux de Bruxelles.
Personne n'aime les choux de Bruxelles, which means no one likes Brussels sprouts. Personne n'aime les choux de Bruxelles. And personne n'aime le chou de Bruxelles means no one likes Brussels sprouts. Rien ne fonctionne.
Rien ne fonctionne.
Rien ne fonctionne. And rien ne fonctionne means nothing is working. Then we have je ne regarde personne. Je ne regarde personne.
Je ne regarde personne.
Je ne regarde personne. And je ne regarde personne means I am not watching anyone. Ils ne cherchent rien.
Ils ne cherchent rien.
Ils ne cherchent rien means they aren't looking for anything. Ils ne cherchent rien. Then we have elle ne va aider personne. Elle ne va aider personne. And elle ne va aider personne means she's not going to help anyone.
Elle ne va aider personne.
Elle ne va aider personne. And again, elle ne va aider personne means she's not going to help anyone. Then we have tu ne vas rien gagner.
Tu ne vas rien gagner.
Tu ne vas rien gagner. And this means you are not going to win anything. So just to run through some of the key highlights from the lesson. To make a sentence negative in French, you will usually hug the conjugated verb with a negative construction like ne and pas, which means not in English. Ne personne, no one, not anyone is an exception. If two verbs are being used together, it will hug both the conjugated verb and the infinitive verb. And this is for ne personne specifically. Then we have indefinite articles like a and partitive articles, some or any, will become de, de, any, after a negative word like pas. Both rien, nothing, and personne, no one, are pronouns, and they can be used either before or after the verb, i.e., as the subject or the object of the sentence. Okay. And this brings us to the end of today's lesson. But as we end every lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about the culture in France. Okay. And we're going to talk about the region of La Provence. So the secrets of La Provence. You can find the very best of culture and nature in Provence. In fact, quite a lot of people already have, from Stone Age artists and Greek colonists to contemporary film enthusiasts. Located in the southeastern corner of France, the region of Provence is nestled between the Alps and the Mediterranean Sea. Blessed with a mild climate, dotted with picturesque hills and rivers, and home to France's famous lavender fields, Provence is a natural paradise, and its beauty hasn't gone unnoticed. In fact, a number of celebrated artists, including Paul Cézanne, Henri Matisse, and Vincent van Gogh, have drawn inspiration from the sights and sounds of Provence. But Provence was inhabited long before any of these masters first lifted their brushes. Prehistoric humans left a trove of incredible paintings on the walls of the Cosquer cave, Marseille, in as early as 25,000 BCE. And the area's history doesn't stop there. Marseille itself was actually founded by the ancient Greeks in around 600 BCE, making it France's oldest city. The Romans, who would conquer Marseille and the rest of the region several hundred years later, left a considerable mark on the area. Thanks to the long and ongoing history, numerous provincial marvels figure on UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites. These include not only bridges, theaters, palaces, and other monuments dating back to the classical antiquity and the Middle Ages, but also more recent wonders such as a vibrant housing block that was designed by pioneering architect Le Corbusier and completed in the 1950s. Other notable places in the region include Cannes, the site of the International Film Festival, Grasse, I think, the perfume capital of the world. Avignon, the home of some incredibly beautiful palaces and bridges. Alais, a treat for lovers of classical Roman architecture. And Nice, an exceptional spot to enjoy not only sun, sand, and sea, but also access to snow-capped mountain peaks.
La Provence.
La Provence, and La Provence means Provence. Et voilà. Again, this brings us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you for joining me to talk about making things negative in French. I hope this lesson helps you as much as it helps me. Now I'm about to start my exercises, so I'll catch you guys for the next lesson. Have a great day.